Thanks to Councilmember Felipe Fuentes for that. We'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee meeting. I'm Chairman Joe Buscaino. I'm joined by Council Members Nuri Martinez, Mitch O'Farrell, and David Ryu. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us. Today is Monday, September 14th. With that, if I could turn your attention to our agenda. We will take the following items on consent, unless colleagues you want to pull any of these. Items 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14. You okay with those items on consent, colleagues? Okay, hearing no objection, that'll be the order. We'll approve those items on consent. There are two items that need technical amendments, at which point we'll take those items now. Item number 2, a street vacation in Council District 1. And I think if I can have John read that item into the record, please.
Item 2, categorical exemption and city engineer report relative to vacation proceedings for the alley northeasterly of Adams Boulevard between Scarf Street and St. James Place and related actions.
Okay. We have a technical amendment. You want to present that now? Sure. Go ahead. Thank you.
Gerald Gubitown, council member, Cedillo's office, and we're just here to ask the committee to modify a certain condition number 6, or in the BOE report, essentially to eliminate this condition related to certain public improvements. The applicant is the Retirement Housing Foundation, which has about 105 affordable housing units at the site, and the vacation would facilitate a integrated site plan, and we'd like to ask to eliminate condition number 6. And I've submitted a letter with more detailed info.
Mr. Yu, have you reviewed the request from Council District 1?
Good afternoon, Edmund Yu from Public Works Engineering. Yes, engineering has worked with CD1 on this issue, and we agreed with the request to delete condition number 6, specifically 6A and 6B. And in addition to that, because of the city approval of the mobility plan, we have to make a couple of technical corrections on a couple other conditions. So I will read that into the record.
Please do.
Is condition number 6A. In addition to the current language in the condition, we will add the following. Under the Mobility Plan 2035, dedicate as necessary a variable width as public streets along the northeasterly side of Adams Boulevard to complete a 50-foot wide half right-of-way per major highway Class 2 standards, together with 15-foot by 15-foot corner cuts at the corners with Scarf Street and with St. James Place. And we recommend to make a second technical correction for condition 5B. In addition to the current language, we recommend the following addition. Under the Mobility Plan 2035, dedicate 4 feet as public streets along the southeasterly side of Scarf Street to complete a 33-foot wide half right-of-way per collector street standards, except where the existing buildings are to remain. And I will give a copy to the city clerks.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, colleagues, on this item, we will approve it as amended. Okay, hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Okay, we had some concerns about these two following items, but I guess those concerns have been taken care of. Items 3 and 13, colleagues, we'll take those items on consent, if you're all okay with that. Okay, so hearing no objection, we'll approve item 3 and 13 on consent. Okay, item number 5, another technical amendment before us. If you can read that into the record, Mr. Clerk, please.
Excuse me, item 5, categorical exemption and city engineer report relative to vacation proceedings for a portion of the alley southwesterly of Beverly Boulevard from Lucas Avenue to approximately 170 feet northwesterly thereof.
Mr. O'Farrell's district, Mr. Yu, Those amendments have been submitted.
That's correct. Edmund Yu from Public Works Engineering. Again, because of the city's mobility plan, we are recommending a couple of technical corrections under this item. The first one is recommendation A, and I'll read that into the records.
Please do. Thank you.
That street vacation proceedings pursuant to public street, highway, and surface easement vacation law be instituted for the vacation of the public right-of-way indicated below and shown color blue on the attached Exhibit B, and that the limits of the vacation area be permitted to be adjusted based on the adjoining dedication requirements. The alley southwesterly of Beverly Boulevard from Lucas Avenue to the northeasterly, southwesterly alley northwesterly of Lucas Avenue. And we are recommending a couple of changes to condition 5B and 6B. For condition 5B, in addition to the current language, BOE recommend the following addition. Under the Mobility Plan 2035, dedicate 13-foot and variable width right-of-way to provide a 43-foot wide half right-of-way dedication along Lucas Avenue adjoining the petitioner's property. And for condition 6B, in addition to the current language, BOE recommends the following addition. Under the new Mobility Plan 2035, construct a 28-foot wide half roadway, integral curb and gutter, and 15-foot wide sidewalk along the westerly side of Lucas Avenue. So those are the proposed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yu. Colleagues, any questions on the amendment? Hearing no objection, we'll approve this. Actually, I do have one speaker card, item number 5, before we approve this. If I can call up Wayne, please. One minute on the clock, please. Thank you.
Categorical exemption and city engineer report relative to vacation proceedings for a portion of the alley southwesterly of Beverly Boulevard from Lucas Avenue to approximately 170 feet northwards thereof. Stay on the topic. Categorical exemption and city engineer report relative to vacation proceedings for a portion of the alley south. Please stay on the topic. Categorical exemption and city engineer report relative to vacation proceedings for a portion of the alley southwesterly of Beverly Boulevard from Lucas Avenue to stay on that subject. 170 feet northwestern thereof. Fiscal impact statement submitted. Yes, stay on the topic. Community impact statement, none submitted. Stay on the topic. Categorical exemption and city engineering report relative to vacation proceedings for a portion of the alley to stay on the subject.
Okay, with this item, without objection, we'll approve item number 5 as amended. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Okay, we can now take up item 15, please.
Item 15, motion Gregorian Wesson relative to instructing the CLA to recommend new policies for the consideration of existing parkway trees prior to approving plans for new garages, driveways, and curb cuts, and instructing the Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division to revise the tree replacement policy to require new 15-gallon trees to replace street trees removed due to new driveway cuts.
Very good. This was brought forward to us by our colleague, Mr. Gregorian. If I can have anywhere from Urban Forestry Division to please come forward. Street Services. Anyone here from staff? Notify the office. We'll hold this item on the desk here, see if we can get someone to come present on this item, on item number 15. Okay, so with that, let's hold 15 on the desk and move to item number 16. You can read that into the record, please.
Item 16, motion Buscaino Bonin relative to instructing the Bureau of Contract Administration with the assistance of the City Attorney to recommend amendments to the Los Angeles Administrative Code to allow the Office of Contract Compliance to more efficiently administer the Equal Employment Practices, Affirmative Action, Equal Benefits, First Source Hiring, Service Contractor, Retention Worker, and Living Wage Ordinance.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Reamer here from Contract Administration. Thank you so much, John, for joining us. If you can first provide us with an overview of the recommended changes of the equal employment practices, affirmative action, equal benefits, first source hiring, service contractor retention worker, living wage ordinances, and two, how would these actions before us impact your department's enforcement ability?
Thank you very much. John Rimmer, Bureau of Contract Administration, to the chair and committee. What we have before you reflects our overview of the various contracting ordinances that the council has in place to facilitate streamlining our contracting process in the city. What we're looking to do is bring about efficiencies, clarity, and equity in the various ordinances that you mentioned, some of which would be living wage, service contractor worker retention, first source hire, equal benefits, and affirmative action. What we found is, as the designated administrative agency, that we have over the years seen as we have the responsibility for monitoring the regulations that govern the ordinances, efficiencies, bringing about a good example would be for the equal benefits and first source hire thresholds that govern when those ordinances would kick in. We're recommending that we increase the threshold to $25,000 to bring about equity for many of the ordinances, so as to allow contractors, when they present, ultimately we would like to use our business assistance virtual network, our Bobbin, and have contractors submit their documentation on one form. It's going to bring about for our office a streamlined approach to make things much more efficient, so that contractors won't submit many documents, and we'll be able to do a check-off scorecard, if you will. Clarity from the standpoint of living wage. Our ordinance and our rules and regs got out of line. There were some practices that were not supported by the ordinance, in the sense that we were doing some things that the ordinance did not give us clear authorization to do. What we're doing now is bringing some of those activities into the ordinance itself. This can only be done by an amendment. The DAA does not have the authority to administer things that are not spoken to clearly in the ordinance. And then from an equity standpoint, for our service contractor worker retention, the dollar amount, a good example, that covers workers has been outpaced in some instances by living wage. And so as a result, we have some areas where workers are making more money than the ordinance itself would cover. So you have some unprotected workers that would not be covered by the service contractor worker retention. We would be recommending that the threshold, if you will, for what a worker is allowed to make to be covered under the ordinance would be tied to the raise or the increase, the rate increase under the living wage. So those are some examples. There are many, many more. We have a summary that what we would like to do is present that to you so that it can be forwarded to the city attorney, and they can work with us to bring back draft ordinances for review.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Questions, colleagues? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to now turn to some speaker cards. If I can call up Ada Camacho to please come forward.
Members of the City Council. Hi, my name is Ada Camacho, and I'm an organizer with Service Employees International Union, USWW. As an organizer at LAX, we see a lot of situations where workers, many of whom are not represented by a union, approach us with gross violations of the airport living wage and worker retention ordinances. Our airport subcontracting system has been set up for maximum competition among contractors, of which there are an unlimited amount at LAX. These subcontractors, they vary in experience and quality. Although the majority are legitimate businesses, the pressure to reduce costs creates an incentive in some to cut corners and push the envelope when it comes to compliance. This is why having clear and consistent enforcement of ground rules is important. we urge you to set forth amendments to the airport living wage that will empower the city's agency to make sure that violations are corrected quickly and gross violators do not operate in a city department. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Camacho. I can call up Juana Alvarado. Please come forward.
Hola, mi nombre es Juana Alvarado. Trabajo en el aeropuerto de Los Ángeles para una compañía que se llama Gay Gourmet.
Hello, my name is Juana Alvarado. I work at LAX for a company called Gay Gourmet.
Yo limpio aviones para Delta. Tengo 8 años limpiando aviones ahí en Delta. Y mi salario antes era más de 13, con beneficios, aseguranza para mi familia. Y ahora solo tenemos $11, un poquito más de $11, y no aseguranza para mi familia, para mis hijos. Y no me alcanza, mis biles no me alcanza, mi aseguranza, la aseguranza para mi familia no tienen aseguranza. Y con $300 no puedo llevarlos al doctor. Entonces,
I've worked cleaning planes for Delta for 8 years, and I used to make a little more than $13 an hour with benefits and full family medical. When the contractor Gay Gourmet came in, my salary went down to a little over $11 an hour, and I lost my benefits and my health care. So now my family has no health care, and it's difficult for me to pay my bills. With the money that I'm making right now, with that Gay Gourmet gives me, and without any health insurance, it's difficult for me to provide for my 2 children.
no me alcanza para los supplies de los hijos para la escuela. Entonces no puedo mantenerme con $300, no puedo, y necesitamos su ayuda.
I don't have enough money to buy the supplies that my kids need for school. The $300 that we get a week is not enough for me to support my children, and that's why we're here asking for your help.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, Annabelle Gonzalez. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Who's this little guy with you?
My son.
How you doing, bud? Welcome to City Hall.
No
school today.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Annabelle Gonzalez. I'm a mother of an 8-year-old boy. I work in LAX Airport for a company named as Scientific Concept, previously known as Spirit, as a cabin cleaner. I have also been a victim of wage theft. This company will find every possible way to steal our wages. Some of these things would be manipulating our time by having us on unpaid lunches and controlling us. We had to be near all the time while we were in lunch, just in case they needed us to go back to work. There were several times when we were in lunch and we had to stop our lunch to go back to work. And not just only that, but they used to also consider a lunch our traveling time to our place where we were going to take our lunch. And even though we had maybe 2, 3, sometimes even at 4 hours of lunch during the day, we probably wouldn't even have time to eat, because some of these times would be our traveling time was considered a lunch. Sometimes we had language like hurry up because we have to leave 10 minutes earlier to get to the next flight in time before your lunch finished. And also any gap that we had that was more than 30 minutes was considered a lunch. Even if we were like in standby waiting for our plane to be ready, that was considered also a lunch.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, also I just wanted to add a little more to it.
Yeah, you can finish up your last statement, sure.
Okay, also with our insurance, we were entitled to get insurance since July 2013. Me personally, I got ill. I was very sick. I needed my insurance. And when I actually needed it, I didn't have it. I didn't have it until October 2014. And all this time, they kept our money and didn't give us the insurance that we needed. And because of that, now my health is a little more severe than before. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, and that's the purpose of this motion before us, colleagues, to ensure that city contracts are free of discrimination, and also that give us an opportunity to encourage more job growth and to prevent adverse social consequences from inadequate compensation, as you heard from some of our speakers. So thank you so much, our brothers and sisters from labor who are here. Thank you for being vocal and visible before this Public Works Committee. Our last speaker on this item will be Wayne.
¿Por qué? Todas las personas que tienen una audiencia en frente de esto de las uniones tienen más de un minuto, como 2 minutos. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué el chino no dijo nada de este año? Yo estoy en el sujetito.
Speak on the item.
Este es el sujetito
Okay, this is your last warning.
de
Speak
los
on the
trabajos, de personas que tienen los trabajos, de los sueldos de unión.
Take a seat now.
Este es de unión. Hay un minuto. ¿Por qué hay dos? ¿Por qué hay dos?
Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues, he is disrupting this meeting. For the record, Wayne Spinler is disrupting this meeting. This is his last warning, otherwise he will be asked to be removed from the chambers. Okay, colleagues, any questions on this item? Okay. Hearing none, we'll approve item 16 and send that to council. Thank you. Okay, our last item, item number 15. We do have Mr. David Haro here from the CAO's office if we have any questions on this item. I do know that the CAO is currently, thanks for allowing me to put you on the spot, David. I know the CAO's office is currently working on a comprehensive report on street trees in order to keep staff from going into different directions. I'll ask for an amendment to this motion. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, David, if you can just come forward and share with us some of the work that CAO's office is doing currently. If you can't speak to the city's tree replacement policy, I know we've talked a number of times as we're crafting this comprehensive sidewalk repair program on the tree replacement policy. Can you just give us this quick two minutes on it?
Okay, I'll try. Our office currently is working with the mayor's office and the city council to try and reestablish the sidewalk repair program. And as part of that reestablishment of the program, the urban forestry has become a critical component of that. The proposed Willett settlement actually gives priority to access, and so whenever there is a conflict between sidewalks and street trees, there's a discussion about whether that tree needs to come down or not. We're trying to find ways to maintain as many trees as possible without cutting them down, and when we do have to come down, to replace them in a way that maintains the urban forest in its current condition or gets it better. Our biggest concern is the depletion of the urban forest over time, and we're trying to avoid that as part of this program. So I think we're working closely with the Board of Public Works and everyone else in Public Works to try and find policies that will allow us to maintain the urban forest. In addition, I know your committee has asked us to report back on several motions that were generated last year, and so we're looking at a bunch of issues relating to contracting out or using city staff, trying to determine which is more efficient and more cost effective. The way that street services goes about doing some of its tree trimming, and a variety of other motions that you had on the record last year. I'm sorry I don't remember them all right off the top of my head.
No, that's fine. Fantastic.
But my understanding is you would like us to review this motion before you in that context and report back. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I also like to instruct the CAO to report on all these items contained in this motion before us with the assistance of the CLA and other city departments listed in the motion as well.
Absolutely. We can't do it without them. So.
Right. Thank you so much. Colleagues, questions? Mr. O'Farrell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hirano. Also, speaking of motions that have been produced over the past couple of years or so, one is mine that passed through council, and we're waiting on an ordinance from the city attorney's office. If you could be aware of that one too, it's in relation to driveway aprons that are no longer needed or no longer in use. New construction has happened around them, and they're closed off. So we have across the city, especially at the urban core, old moribund driveway aprons that are basically can be removed, can be returned as curbs with parkways where a tree can go. So I would like you to, when you report back, take a look at that. Obsolete driveway aprons essentially, where the use has changed and the built environment has changed. Also, across the city, we have parkways that have been paved, non-permitted, in residential areas and commercial areas, you name it. So I think that when we take a look at this, and then we take a look at our 30-year new sidewalk plan, when we evaluate the sites, that we also take a look at all of those instances, because there are probably thousands of them across the city. And again, that's harming our ability to replenish the aquifer when it rains, etc. So I would love to be able to remove more concrete where we can, plant more parkway trees, increase our urban canopy, and I think this is one great opportunity to do that. Preserve, replace, etc. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Martinez? Push the button.
Where is the department? Why aren't they here? I want to speak about this because I don't know if the rest of you have a similar experience, but our experience in the district has been very little response from the department, so I want us to address that at some point. I see that they're not here. I don't know if they weren't. I assume they were asked to be here and speak on the item, but it's disappointing that they're not here. One of the things I wanted to address is I think this motion should be within reason. There are trees that were planted in areas that they shouldn't have been planted to begin with. We have trees that are not conducive to this climate in Los Angeles. So this is why we have such a problem in my district with some of these really mature trees, maybe 70, 80-year-old magnolia trees, for example, that are uprooting our sidewalks and causing so much pipe damage that sometimes the homeowners have to put a claim against the city to be able to repair their plumbing issues. So these are some of the issues I wanted to discuss with the department, but since they're not here, I think we need to be very aware of the fact that some of these trees need to be removed because they're causing so much damage. I'm committed to repairing sidewalks in my district, but if the cause of the sidewalk being uplifted is because of a tree, then the tree needs to get removed. And I've been very clear about that. So again, just disappointed that they couldn't be here, but thank you very much for you being here.
Yeah, we had commitment from Mr. Lorenzen, Ron Lorenzen from Urban Forestry, and once this goes to council, we'll ensure that they are ever present, right? Any questions? Happy to be joined by Mr. Curtin Price. Thank you, council member, for joining us. Okay, so with that, we'll turn to cards. If I can call up Barry Johnson. Barry will be followed by Lynette Camp.
Hello. Barry Johnson, Studio City Neighborhood Council Government Affairs Committee Vice Chair. And I think you have before you a motion that came from our neighborhood council.
Yes, for the record, we do have it. Thank you so much.
And that's more or less what spurred Councilman Krikorian's motion. And our problem in our area has been spec builders building McMansions, and they seem to just have one blueprint. And if the driveway of the old house was on one side and theirs is on the other, the tree that's where the driveway is now going to go is automatically cut down. And we're talking mature trees, and usually ones that aren't uprooting sidewalks. And all we were asking is to consider doing a mirror image of a blueprint so you can keep the driveway on the same side. To if they are doing it on the same side and it required a driveway widening, keep the apron the same size so you don't have to take the tree down. So we would just ask that the items that we asked for consideration in our motion be considered by the various city entities that this is going to. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your service as well to our neighborhood council. Lynette?
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Lynette Campy, speaking on behalf of the Community Forest Advisory Committee. We had been working on a motion that we actually approved September 3rd within our own working group for a moratorium on driveway cuts, because we have seen that there's not only trees lost, it's part of the McMansionism where there's greater bulk added to the structure and suddenly a double driveway is needed where one used to be sufficient. But there's then the parkway, as Mitch was saying, the parkway is lost. And so what used to be public parking becomes private drive. What used to be open green space becomes pavement. We are definitely in favor of this motion. I'm delighted to see a more realistic replacement schedule that would be based on caliper. We also need to be doing some sort of verification that the trees actually get planted, that they're not just yarded and left to perish. And yes, urban forestry needs to come in at the beginning of the process, not after the project has gone through numerous approval phases. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also, thank you for your time with CFAC as well. Really appreciate your help. Tom Grant, please come forward. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Obviously, you've already pointed out that street tree's not here. I mean, we've basically begged the city departments to participate with us in developing solutions to this problem. And as you can see, they're just not going to cooperate with us. And that's why we really today are asking you to take the bold step of imposing a temporary moratorium on the driveway permits. I mean, basically, this has all come out of mansionization, and they're trying to deal with mansionization, of course, but that's private property. And what's happening here is this is public property unwittingly being taken back by the developers for their personal use. You know, they first clear-cut the lots, and when they finish building the house, there's no place to plant a tree. There's no side yard. There's no room in the backyard because of a pool. Half the front yard's a driveway. So the only place left to plant a tree is the front yard, and now they want to take half of the front yard, literally a 50-foot wide lot. Now we'll have a 24-foot wide driveway. That's half the width of the lot. And so if we, in Sherman Oaks alone, just in one building inspector's area, he has 80 new houses under construction, 80. Every one of those could be the loss of a street tree. We also, in our area, have preferential parking. There's so little parking on the streets, we have to have permit parking. So each one of these tree removals, as well, with the widened driveway, results in the loss of a parking space. This is forever. And that's why we're really asking you today to take the bold step of asking the city attorney to either draft something to temporarily put a hold on the issuance of permits, or direct the departments to not issue a permit that will result in the loss of either the tree planting space, a parking space, and of course a tree. Also, as you've noted, the CAO is doing a comprehensive report on trees, and you'll notice in the motion that asks the CLA to head up the report back on this particular motion. And also, what's left out is, we're all from CFAC. CFAC is not mentioned in the motion at all to participate in developing whatever guidelines we hopefully will come up with.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Okay. Gideon? Is it Krakoff?
Yes.
Welcome.
Mr. Chair, council members, pleasure to be before you today. This is probably the most beautiful room in the city. It's also Rosh Hashanah, so I should be in temple, but you get an exemption if you're saving a life or saving a tree. So here we are today. I've been working pro bono for about 8 months with Public Works, the CFAC, and others on Board of Public Works and Urban Forestry's tree removal policies. This applies to street trees, protected oaks and sycamores, and removal for development projects. And the city rules need a lot of work, really in all areas, and I applaud the council for getting involved in these policies like today. Your urban forestry needs better resources, better technology, man and women power, better study of alternatives and resources. This is deeply troubled right now, and it's really a good time to be looking at it. All of this, of course, is layered in on the Willits settlement as well. If I can take maybe 30 more seconds, Willits has the potential for taking thousands of trees in our urban forest, and this is in districts like 15, 6, 8, 9, where there's not a lot of street trees. There should be a balance between tree removals and protecting our urban forest. I also very quickly want to mention CEQA. It's much maligned, but it's designed exactly for things like this, for protecting thousands and maybe even more of trees. And I think that when you're talking about Willits, which is a program, a large project, you should study it that way, which means you're probably going to need a program EIR to study Willits, to study all of the impacts of it. I'll credit Jenny Chavez, but she said today to see the forest through the trees. We need to look at the forest and to see how this is going to be affected by Willits. I haven't been able to attend any of your meetings in the community. That's why I'm here in Rosh Hashanah today to start engaging with you on this. I very much look forward to working with you. Thanks for your consideration, and Lashana Tova.
Thank you. Our final speaker on this item is Wayne.
Sounds great, doesn't it? Until you get the most important impact statement, the campaign donor impact statement. Because you see, the problem is not the law. The problem is that you're owned by developers. That's the problem. Everybody here is owned by developers. Raise your hand if you're not owned by a developer. See? That's the problem. Because these people come to all these meetings. Everything. Kevin James runs the Department of Public Works. I was here this morning on a meeting. They cover this tree issue all the time. People come in, they're right, the tree should not be cut down. The developer gets right up here, says it should be cut down, and every single time unanimously the tree's going to be cut down. So the problem is that you need an injunction to stop the removal of these trees. But you won't do it because you're owned by the developers.
Okay, in addition to those amendments that we brought forward, we'd like to, colleagues, if you're okay with including the CFAC as one of the entities that should be a part of this group here, the Community Forest Advisory Committee.
Yes, so moved. I agree.
Very good. Okay, we'll do that. So we'll amend this motion to instruct the CAO to report on all three items contained in the motion with assistance from the CLA and other departments listed in the motion, including the Community Forest Advisory Committee. Right. Okay, hearing no objection, that will be the order. Okay, thank you so much. Like to now, before we go into general public comment, I do want to recognize Public Works Commissioner Joe Jacinto, who is here. Thank you, Commissioner. I believe this is your first meeting that we've come before us. Thank you so much for your service. Obviously, you're enjoying what you're doing because you're still here in just a short time. Really appreciate your commitment and your energy and love for the city. Thank you for joining us. So we have one general public comment card. I'd like to bring up Wayne.
I notice that in these meetings, you let people go over the 1 minute time limit just because they're your friends. And in our general meetings, Mr. Herb Wesson, every time you speak, you hear the same thing. Stay on the topic, stay on the topic. Now, you have a choice. There's 15 council people, and there's one Herb Wesson. Are you just going to cede the city over to Herb Wesson Jr.? Then just don't come to these meetings anymore. Let Herb Wesson Jr. sit up there, send the mayor out of the city, and then Herb Wesson Jr. can run the whole city. And I brought this issue up today at Public Works. Mr. Jacinto saw that. And I suggested that their committee also just go ahead and leave and just let Herb Wesson Jr. run the entire city, because that's exactly what's happening. You can't, the other 14 of you are irrelevant. The charter has been suspended by Herb Wesson Jr.
Okay, colleagues, with that, we will now adjourn the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee meeting. Thank you so much, and have a blessed rest of the day. Thank you.